Hi there, in this screencast I'm going to do a little review of two-dimensional arrays and write a few methods that are examples of what you might see on tomorrow's quiz on two-dimensional arrays. Okay, so the most important thing to know about two-dimensional arrays are how to declare them and how to iterate through each element of the array. So to declare a two-dimensional array, you use two sets of square brackets. And to instantiate one, you, in those brackets, put the number of rows and the number of columns. All right, so this makes a two-dimensional array named X, whose variable is named X, creates an array object with 5 rows and 6 columns and assigns that to X. Now, to reference the number of rows of an array, we would do, so for X, we would do X.length, and the number of columns of any array, or my array, in this case X, is going to be X0.length. All right, so number of rows and number of columns. Okay, so to iterate through an array, typically you do, the outer loop is the row, is used to iterate through the rows, and the inner loop is used to iterate through each column of each row. So I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I less than, let's see, X.length, I plus plus, and for int J equals 0, J less than X bracket 0 dot length. J plus plus, and then inside the very body of the inner loop, I would reference X bracket I bracket J. And that way, each time through the inner loop, the next consecutive element in the array is going to be referenced, going one row at a time and then one column at a time. Okay, you can also use for each loops to loop through the elements of an array. So in the case of X, I'm going to say for each int row in X, and then I'll say for each int element in row. Then I can just reference element as the value that's assigned to the next element of the array. Now, just like with for each loops for one dimension, when working with one-dimensional arrays, you can't make any assignment statements using the for each loop syntax. You can also not reference the position of each element in the array. Pretty much you're just using the for each loops to inspect each element in the array and not make any assignments to them or look for any pattern in the way that they're ordered. Okay, so here are a few examples of some methods that involve two-dimensional arrays. So the first one is just to sum up all the values in an array. So I'm going to say int sum equals 0, and then I'm going to say 4. int I equals 0 less than x dot length I plus plus. Oops. And for int j equals 0, j less than ARR bracket 0 dot length j plus plus, and I would do sum plus equals ARR bracket I bracket j, and then I would return sum. If I want to do the same thing with for each loops, it would look like this. And then I would say for each. Okay, so int row in array, and then I'm going to say for each int element in row sum plus equals element. Okay, so the next one is return a 1D array containing the sums of the rows and columns in consecutive order. So for 1, 3, 5, 2, 7, 8, 3, 1, 1, it would return 9, 17, 5, 6, 11, 14. So basically it's going to add up the rows and first add up each row and put those in the elements of a one-dimensional array. So row 1 here adds up to 9, so I would assign that to the first position of the array that it's going to return. Row 2 here adds up to 17, so I would assign 17 to the next element of the array. And then the third row adds up to 5, and the first column adds up to 6, the second column adds up to 11, and the third column adds up to 14. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to need to do is make an array whose length is the number of rows plus the number of columns. So I'm going to say of the array that's provided, I'm going to say int new array equals new int, and then it's going to be the number of rows and the number of columns. So it's going to be array.length plus ARR bracket 0 dot length. Okay, so now I need to do the rows one at a time, and I'm going to say I'm going to have a variable that's going to keep track of where the next sum goes in my new array. So I'm going to say int position equals 0, and now I need to go through each row and add up the sums. So I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I less than ARR.length, I plus plus. So that's going to go one row at a time. And I will say int sum equals 0. And now I need to go across each column in for that row. So I'm going to say int j equals 0, j less than arr.length, bracket, or I'm sorry, arr bracket 0.length, and then j plus plus, and I will say sum plus equals arr bracket I bracket j. Okay, so once that loop is done, I'll have the sum for that row, and then I need to assign it to the next reposition in my new array. So I'm going to say new array position equals sum, and then position plus plus. That way, the next time through, I'll be adding the value to the next reposition in my new array. Okay, so that handles all the rows, and now let me handle all of the columns. So let me set position, well, actually no. I want to keep position where it is. Okay, so now I'm going to do the reverse. I'm going to go across the columns first. So I'm going to say int j equals 0. So I'm going column by column. J less than arr bracket 0.length, and j plus plus. And now for each column, I'm going to go across each row. So, and sum up all the values in all the rows for that column. So I'm going to say int sum equals 0, and then I equals 0, I less than length, I plus plus. And it will be sum plus equals arr bracket I bracket j. Okay, so now I will have added each value in each row for that column to come up with the sum. And then I'm going to say new array position equals sum and position plus plus. And then the last thing I need to do is return the new array. So I'm going to say return new array. Okay, so this is how you would add up all of the values in all of the rows or of the array, and this is how you do the columns. Okay, so finally I have returned a two-dimensional array where each element of the original array has been doubled. Okay, so this is a pretty basic one. So I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I less than j equals 0. And I would just say ARR bracket I bracket j times equals 2. And then return ARR. Okay, that's my little review of two-dimensional arrays. I think the most important things to realize is how to iterate through a two-dimensional array by going row by row, which would be this. Or if you want to iterate through by going column by column, and then that's going to be this. Also, how to reference the number of rows. It's just the length of the array. The number of columns is the name of the array, bracket 0.length. Okay, I hope that helped, and we will see you tomorrow. Cheers.